Imagine the year 1347. A Genoese trading ship, laden with exotic spices and silks, pulls into the bustling port of Messina, Sicily. Its crew, weary from the long voyage, prepares to disembark. But this time, something is different. The rats, they stay hidden in the hold. The fleas, dormant. The invisible enemy, the harbinger of death, simply isn't there. No dark spots bloom on the skin. No feverish cough rattles the lungs. The bubonic plague, that infamous spectre, has been averted. The most devastating pandemic in human history never happened. What then? How does the world breathe without that suffocating grip? Europe, a continent already straining at its seams, continues its relentless growth. Millions upon millions of souls who, in our timeline, would have perished, now live. They farm the fields, they fill the towns, they crowd the cities. The Black Death, which freed up vast tracts of land, now leaves those lands perpetually tilled, perpetually contested. There are no ghost towns. No empty cottages. Just more mouths. More hands. And this, perhaps surprisingly, is where our alternate history takes a darker turn. Without the catastrophic loss of life, the fundamental power dynamics of medieval society remain frozen. Serfs, bound to the land, find no sudden opportunities for freedom, no chance to demand higher wages. Why would lords pay more when an endless supply of cheap labor is literally queuing at their gates? The feudal system, which began to crack under the pressure of labor shortages in our history, now entrenches itself deeper, stronger. Wages stagnate. Poverty becomes even more widespread, more crushing. Famines, which were already a grim reality, now strike with terrifying regularity, exacerbated by ever-increasing populations pushing the limits of medieval agriculture. A desperate scramble for resources defines daily life. And what of innovation? Our history shows that necessity is often the mother of invention. The scarcity of labor after the plague spurred significant technological advancements: water mills, improved plows, the early stirrings of mechanized processes. But in this alternate world, with an abundance of cheap human labor, the incentive to develop labor-saving devices simply isn't there. Why invest in a complex, costly machine when a dozen desperate men can do the job for pennies? Technological progress slows to a crawl. The Renaissance, that explosion of art, science, and humanism, might be delayed, its focus shifted. Without the stark confrontation with mortality, the intense focus on human suffering, and the questioning of divine authority that the plague provoked, perhaps art remains more rigidly religious, science more rooted in ancient dogma. Cities, already hotbeds of disease and squalor, grow even larger, even more unsanitary. Imagine London, Paris, Florence, not just crowded, but suffocatingly so. The sheer density of people becomes a breeding ground for other diseases, though perhaps none as swiftly devastating as the bubonic plague. Public health, already rudimentary, struggles to cope. The very air is thicker with the breath of humanity, a constant, low hum of existence under immense pressure. This demographic pressure ripples outwards, affecting the very fabric of power. Peasant revolts, like the Wat Tyler Rebellion in England, sparked by demands for better wages and conditions, simply don't happen. The lords reign supreme, their authority unchallenged by an emboldened peasantry. Monarchies find themselves with an endless supply of soldiers, fueling larger, longer, and bloodier wars across the continent. The 100 Years' War. It stretches on, consuming generations, fought with ever larger armies. And beyond Europe's borders, the Byzantine Empire, in our history, was already weakened before the plague delivered a near-fatal blow, paving the way for Ottoman expansion. But in this timeline, a more populous Byzantium, though still facing internal strife, might offer stiffer resistance. Or, perhaps, a more crowded, desperate Europe looks outwards sooner. The age of exploration might begin earlier, driven not by a need for new trade routes after plague-induced economic disruption, but by the sheer, crushing pressure of overpopulation and a desperate search for new lands to settle, new resources to exploit. The seeds of colonialism, planted in a harsher, more crowded Europe, might sprout with even greater ferocity. The Church, too, remains largely unchallenged, its authority unquestioned by the mass death that, in our history, forced many to confront its limits. So, the world without the Black Death, It's not the utopia we might first imagine. Instead, it's a realm of relentless pressure, of rigid hierarchies, of slower innovation, and perhaps, of even greater suffering for the masses. A world where the absence of one catastrophe might have paradoxically paved the way for a different, more drawn-out kind of hardship. What other seemingly bad events might have had unexpected, positive consequences for humanity? It's a question that truly makes you rethink history, isn't it? If you're fascinated by these paths not taken, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our journey through the endless what-ifs of history and mythology. Until next time, keep wondering.